What's up, Twins fans? It's Tom. Let's talk about some of the issues, some of the trends that are plaguing the Minnesota Twins right now. Let's try to fix some stuff. A good time to do that. The Twins are below 500 so far this month, in large part because we are in the AL Central, but the Twins still in the lead in the division, still 3.5 game lead over Detroit in the division. This is a gift that we're in this situation. I looked and I believe they'd be 2.5 games out of the American League wild card right now. So still in the thick of the playoff hunt, but out of the wild card picture if they were in a different division behind a division leader. But as you can see, the Twins do have a really good run differential, plus 43, very solid. Their expected win-loss record, the next column over, is 28-19. Unfortunately, they're only 25-22, so underperforming to that run differential, in part because there's a couple blowouts there that they won. And then we are going to talk about one of those last columns there, the road record of 11-14. So we also have a losing record on the road, which we'll get to in just a sec. But I thought this was pretty fascinating to see. This is MLB's power rankings that they just put out today. And I think part of this is showing there's a lot of teams that aren't really playing up to their expectations at the moment. So the Twins being in the top 10, I think, is part of that. The Phillies, last year's NLCS champions. The Phillies are under 500. The Padres are under 500. The Mariners are under 500. And that's just the under 500 teams, let alone some other teams kind of floating around at 500. To be honest, I don't think I would have put the Twins as high as 8th. That surprised me. So focusing in on some of the problems that have been going on, this is one that doesn't make sense. This is one that I don't know how you really you fix. I mean, there's ways we can talk about it, but what we're looking at here is the Twins' situational hitting with bases empty, men on, runners in scoring position, and bases loaded. As you can see, with runners in scoring position overall, they've been tremendous. I think I looked and they were third in baseball in terms of hitting with runners in scoring position. So you can't say that this team is not doing well with runners in scoring position. However, they are horrible with the bases loaded. Unimaginably bad. That is disgusting. And I mean, it's a small sample. So, it could turn around. You'd figure it will turn around eventually. But this is something that's really limited the offense, which has obviously been the problem in some of these games. The pitching's been great, especially the starting pitching. Especially the starting pitching has been great. We'll talk about the bullpen in just a minute. But overall, the pitching's been great, and I think what's been especially frustrating about these games, these losses that the Twins have had, is all the losses feel so similar. And that's another thing with the good run differential they have. They do have so many losses in close games where the score is close at the end. So I mean, that's better than getting blown out. It's probably more frustrating as a fan to watch that night after night, but it's better than getting blown out. So, I mean, they're definitely not going to have a 289 OPS with the bases loaded for the year, I can tell you that much. But how do we fix that? I think the guys, I think they know that this has been a problem, and I think they are pressing a little bit. Have they been too aggressive? Maybe. That's kind of hard to say, though, because they've been called out on strikes on some terrible calls. Pitches that had no business being called strikes that they're taking. And getting punished for trying to be patient on those pitches. So I can see why, if they're trying to get the bat off their shoulder, if they're trying to swing earlier in the count, because they don't want that plate appearance to be up to potentially a bad call by the umpiring crew. There's just a lot of stuff going on to where I could see psychologically they're facing some challenges with the bases loaded at this point. But again, how do you fix it? It's not like you can go out and acquire a bat that's good with the bases loaded. And actually, there's a bunch of guys on the Twins who've been tremendous bases loaded hitters over their careers. But just to sort of stress this concept, I pulled up the best bases loaded hitters over the past 5 years. So let's just take a look at some of these guys. And former Twins great Danny Santana is the third best hitter with the bases loaded in this sample that I pulled. At least 10 plate appearances. So a lot of these guys, not a whole lot. But some of these guys are terrible. There's some really good players in here. Your Tatises, your Trouts, your Machados. There's also some just terrible hitters in this mix. Just to kind of stress that, It's pretty random when we're talking about hitting with the bases loaded. It's very small samples. I'm not trying to let them off the hook. These guys have to be doing a better job. Somebody's got to kind of buck the trend. Moving on, I mentioned their road issues, and they're also struggling against left-handed pitching, which maybe was kind of to be a thing we could have seen coming into the year. But the Twins ranked 25th in OPS on the road, and this was a very bad road team last year. As we saw earlier, they have a losing record on the road so far this year, so this continues to be an issue. At home, they've been a pretty good offense, not having any problem hitting at target field, but for some reason when they take to the road, 25th. Most teams do better at home than the road, but this is ranking all the teams and how they're hitting on the road, and the Twins are the 25th ranked road team in terms of OPS. Then you see there against left-handed pitching, they rank 25th. A lot of left-handed hitters on the Twins, a lot of their right-handed bats that they acquired to kind of hopefully even some things out haven't been doing as well. Carlos Correa slumping as a right-handed hitter doesn't help either. So those are certainly two problems. And the road one is sort of like the bases loaded one, which is like, I don't know how you can't like go outside this isn't like forecasting a trade deadline. We can't do that with this guy hits good on the road. Like you would never do that. But in terms of against the left-handed pitching thing, you can. They definitely should be trying to find a right-handed hitting lefty masher who can maybe step up a little bit more. Kyle Farmer being out for a while hurt in that regard as well. They do have some pieces. Royce Lewis, we'll mention in just a moment, might help there too. But anyway, moving on, as promised, to the bullpen. Here is where the Twins rank in terms of bullpen across the league as a whole so far. I think some people might be surprised that they're not just dead last. Because again, when there's so many of these close games, to where the bullpen is getting saddled with the loss. Griffin Jax has been just brutal lately in that regard. So they are not good enough. This is not good enough. I'm not trying to say that, look, they're all right in some of these numbers. It's not that bad. No, they need to be better. But this is a area where they can, another one where they can target. We mentioned a right-handed hitting lefty masher. That would be a huge boost to this team. Bullpen. And I think most of your contending teams are going to be looking for bullpen pieces. You don't want to alter your starting pitching depth so much to where if you have another couple injuries, you are scrambling. But I do think it's time to start considering maybe converting some of these guys that you have in the minor leagues to, shorter relievers, two guys that can help out this bullpen. Because the bullpen is also thinner. It's been thinned out. Not having Caleb Thielbar is a big deal. That's a big blow. Jorge Alcala not being out for one, and then just not having pitched as well as I was hoping is another blow. Under normal circumstances, if those guys were healthy, you could potentially, slide Jax down the pecking order for a while. And Brock Stewart has come in and been brilliant and has allowed for that to a certain degree. But it's difficult when you're missing one of your top guys like Thielbar. I talked about Jax in particular last week. If you missed that, he still hasn't given up a home run. Still, all of his pitch arsenal numbers are tremendous. I do think he is overexposing his slider at this point, and he needs to make an adjustment there. So we'll see how he goes forward. But there's no doubting that he's been pretty rough, pretty brutal, been unlucky, but also just that's a lot of bad luck. At a certain point, you got to make your own luck. It's still early. There's still 70% of the season to go, but it's not early enough to kind of pick at and address and look at maybe what issues you're wanting to address at the trade deadline. But should mention more immediately, Royce Lewis is going to be back on this team before too long. And as a right-handed hitter, as a guy who runs the bases well, as a guy who plays the field well, he should be a big boost. That was another thing I didn't have any numbers prepared for, but the Twins definitely have some room for improvement on the bases and more so in the field. I think in terms of outs above average, this is a bottom 5 team in outs above average. So they could definitely use some help there. So we'll see. So these are the issues that we're picking at. These are the things we're looking at this team to address going forward. Let me know your thoughts and kind of some areas of improvement that you see for this team going forward. Of course, again, the situation of being in the AL Central is great, but that doesn't mean, and being in first place It's very advantageous to the Twins. These issues need to get addressed. This team is not reaching its potential right now, at least in my opinion. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this. Thanks to the channel members for sponsoring the channel. And here are the premium members. We'll talk again soon.